Notice that de facto statutes, rules, and regulations do not apply. Your name or organization. Your address. City, state, zip code. Email address. Phone number. Date. 2. Recipient's name or organization. Recipient's address. City, state, zip code. Subject. Formal notice regarding the non-applicability of de facto statutes, rules, and regulations. Dear, recipient's name. Legal basis for this notice. This letter serves as formal notification that any and all de facto statutes, rules, and regulations do not apply to the undersigned, nor do they hold any lawful authority over private individuals absent proper jurisdiction, valid consent, or constitutional authority. Any attempt to enforce de facto statutes without proper legal standing constitutes a violation of due process, constitutional rights, and lawful governance. De facto laws lack constitutional authority. Any statute, rule, or regulation that has not been properly enacted under the supreme law of the land is null and void. Consent and jurisdiction are required. No administrative body, court, or enforcement agency may impose obligations absent full disclosure, lawful consent, and established jurisdiction. Legal standing must be verified. Any entity asserting legal authority must provide verifiable evidence proving jurisdiction and the constitutional applicability of statutes being enforced. Unlawful enforcement constitutes fraud and coercion. Any attempt to apply de facto rules without constitutional authority may be considered fraudulent misrepresentation, coercion, and a breach of due process protections. Immediate required actions. Cease and desist any enforcement of de facto laws. Any attempt to enforce statutes, rules, or regulations without constitutional or contractual authority must be halted immediately. Provide verifiable proof of lawful authority. If the recipient asserts jurisdiction, they must submit legal documentation proving constitutional compliance and proper applicability. Acknowledge the limitations of de facto governance. The recipient must formally recognize that administrative codes and statutes do not supersede constitutional law or private rights. Legal consequences for noncompliance. Failure to recognize and adhere to constitutional limitations on de facto laws may result in legal challenges and nullification of proceedings. Any enforcement action based on an unlawful assertion of de facto authority may be overturned and dismissed. Liability for violations of constitutional rights. Any party attempting to impose unlawful rules may be held accountable for civil rights violations, fraud, and coercion. Public and legal scrutiny. Continued enforcement of de facto statutes may lead to reputational harm, regulatory penalties, and civil litigation. This notice serves as official documentation affirming that any attempt to enforce de facto statutes, rules, or regulations without lawful authority is invalid and subject to challenge. Any failure to comply with this notice shall be subject to full legal rebuttal and enforcement measures. A response addressing this matter is expected no later than specific date. If further clarification is required, you may contact me at your contact information. Sincerely. Your name. Your position, if applicable. Your organization name, if applicable. Enclosures, list any attached documents,